Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 18th of March 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I saw this kind of like tweet from Time magazine today with Vitalik on the cover. So Vitalik has been featured in the latest edition of Time magazine, and the title on the front of, the cover here is "The Prince of Crypto Has Concerns. Ethereum creator Vitalik Buterin fights to fix the world he created." Now, the piece is actually quite good. I read the piece just before, so it's kind of like fresh in my mind. So there's a few things I wanted to talk about here. So I guess what Vitalik was mainly, concerned about, what he has concerns about, is the technology that we're all kind of like using, crypto, blockchain technology, all that sort of stuff, being used for things that's not necessarily bad or evil, but just don't kind of like push the world forward in a really, a grand and scalable way. And these are things that I've talked about before, things like the Ponzi's, the money games, the obscene wealth that people make from these sorts of things, instead of, focusing on the actual world-changing applications, and not just things like DeFi, but things kind of like on-chain identity, new ways of kind of like coordinating, new governance systems, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, that stuff, is less interesting to most people than making money, but I think from my reading, Vitalik's concerns are that we have this amazing technology that can do all this sort of stuff, but we're really just focusing on using it to make money, or to kind of like come up with new ways to make money, new ways to make different Ponzi's and money games and stuff like that. And this can be used for good as well. Like, you guys know about the concept of regenerative finance, basically using these speculative degen things for good, and kind of bringing that funding to public goods funding and stuff like that, bringing that money there. And we can also use those sorts of things to do things like put money towards humanitarian efforts. Obviously, Ethereum and crypto in general had a really great initiative to kind of donate to the Ukrainian kind of war effort, and the defense effort there, where I believe it was raised over $100 million. So obviously that a lot of that is speculative profits that people have made, and they're just kind of like donating that there. So it can be used for good, but I think right now, the vast majority of this ecosystem is being used to just kind of like make money, right? Whether it's just participating in outright scams, whether it's kind of like participating in Ponzi's or money games, whether it's just speculating on tokens, which is fine. Like, I mean, as I said, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I think Vitalik's concerns are that, we're wasting the technology that we have. And I share those concerns. I've written about this a lot in the newsletter. I've talked about it a lot on the Refuel. And it's easy for people like Vitalik and I to say these sorts of things. I think Vitalik's been quite consistent with his views, but it's easy for people who already have the money to say these sorts of things. And I totally understand that. Like, I'm talking about this from a privileged position, but I'm not saying that making money is bad, or wanting to make money is bad, or, maybe your only goal in this ecosystem is to make money. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think that we should, find ways to essentially incentivize the, creation of tools that actually go beyond just making money. Because at the end of the day, guys, like, making money and, making lots of money is just one small part of life. There are so many other things going on in life. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're living under a kind of like oppressive regime, and even if you're kind of like a millionaire, if you're not an oligarch, one of the kind of like top people in the inner circle, you are still kind of like at the whims of a shitty government, right? Or, yes, more money can buy you better healthcare, but at the end of the day, right, there are certain things that money isn't going to be able to cure, right, no matter how much you throw at it. But those are kind of, like esoteric examples. But an example that maybe relates to crypto more is, it doesn't matter how much money you have if you're not putting, if kind of like we're building, if we're not building better, coordination mechanisms, better kind of like systems that allow for the world to just kind of like get better over time, to help more people, to basically bring everyone up together, not just the kind of like singular people making money in crypto, then it's definitely a waste. But I highly recommend reading the kind of like entire post here on Time. I think it might be paywalled for some people, and it doesn't seem to be paywalled for me. They are bugging me to subscribe, but I mean, I don't really read Time magazine, but this story was definitely a really good one. It peels behind the curtain a bit of Vitalik's life as well. So if you're interested in that, definitely go check this out. But I think, I could talk forever about these sorts of things that Vitalik spoke about in here, but I don't want to fill up the whole episode today with just that. But definitely give this a read, and if you want to discuss this further, you can in the Discord channel. It's a pretty good place to discuss it. So yeah, just ping me on there. We can talk about it further there. All right, so some client diversity, I guess, metrics and movements happening here. So one thing from Freddie, who is the Ethereum ecosystem lead at Blockdaemon, basically in a tweet, he said, regarding Ethereum client diversity, I created some financial scenario modeling of risks and benefits, obviously with simplifications and only looking at large client level failures, but wanted to make the unlikely but possible disasters explicit. So you can kind of see here the kind of, I guess, like financial modeling that Freddie has done. Now, as I've discussed before, depending on what client you run in the event of a kind of an attack or a bug, if you're running the supermajority client, you get punished a lot more than running a minority client in terms of kind of like the amount of ETH that you stand to lose due to slashing or something else, or kind of like something similar to that. But in this kind of, I guess, spreadsheet, Freddie goes over the different scenarios of what can happen and, the penalties that can happen here. So I thought this was really cool. I think, there are definitely assumptions made here and kind of, I guess it's not going to be like 100% totally accurate, but it's good that we start kind of like thinking about these sorts of things and we start modeling them out because, I mean, I've been harping on about client diversity for a while, but I think that client diversity goes beyond just like the attack scenario that I was kind of like, no, not just the attack scenario, but like the scenarios that I've spoken about in the past. And it really does, I guess, like it doesn't pay to run the supermajority client in the event of one of these attacks or one of these bugs. So definitely just another kind of like thing to keep in mind here. But yeah, go check out this spreadsheet from Freddie. I'll link it in the YouTube description. And the second thing I got to do with client diversity is this new website called rated.network. I haven't seen this before. I don't know if it's totally new, but essentially what it does is it basically ranks the different kind of, I guess, staking services and pools and things like that, and their client distribution, what that kind of looks like on the beacon chain here. So you can see here that essentially in I believe in pink, or in, I guess, like that's a hot pink there, is Prism. In dark blue, or I guess like a purple, is Lighthouse. In a aqua or turquoise is Teku, and then Nimbus is in the orange here. So obviously a lot of hot pink there, right? A lot of staking service providers using Prism and using majority Prism. I've showed this before as part of another website where they broke down kind of like this distribution here of clients, but I mean, Coinbase is still over 80% Prism. That's pretty bad. Kraken's over 90% Prism. That's terrible. Bitfinex and Huobi are at 95%. I mean, Anchor is 97%. Like, this is pretty bad, guys. And not to focus on the bad, I mean, there are some good things here. Like, F2 Pool is using 100% Lighthouse. Stakefish is using 96% Lighthouse. I mean, that's better because Lighthouse isn't the majority client. But really, all of these pools and service providers, they shouldn't be using a kind of like any one client as like a majority for them. I think the ideal distribution is maybe something like what Rocket Pool has, where they have like Prism at 10% here, Lighthouse at 44%, Teku at 37%, and Nimbus at 9%. I would prefer to see that all 25, 25, 25, 25. Obviously, we're probably not going to ever get to that, but I mean, I've kind of like talked about how Rocket Pool was killing it in the client diversity game before, and they really are compared to their peers. But it's not enough to have kind of like 100% Teku or 100% Lighthouse or whatever just because it's not the super majority. You're better off at least having kind of like a 50-50 split, or 30 30 20 20. But that's what I would like to see. But I mean, this is me just kind of like dreaming of an ideal world. I honestly don't think we're going to get to that world. I think that as long as we have no one client as part of these service providers, kind of like having more than at kind of like worst, more than a 60% share, ideally less than a 50% share, I think we're in a pretty good place. But, that's going to take time. It's going to take time for the exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken to get off Prism. They may not even get off Prism. They may just kind of like stop spinning up new Prism clients and just spin up other clients when people stake with them. So it's probably going to take a lot longer there. But still, I think it's getting better. I think client diversity is getting better slowly over time, but it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. And actually, there's more than one page here. There's 2 pages here, and you can see a breakdown of other kind of exchange service providers here as well. But definitely go check out this website. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so a massive announcement out of Optimism today. They have raised another funding round here, a Series B, at a $150 million raise at a $1.6 billion valuation. Now, disclosure here, I participated in this round as an angel investor. As I've said to you guys, if I get the opportunity to participate in a round of a Ethereum scalability solution, I am definitely participating. Like, it's a no-brainer to me. Just, I want to support these teams. I want to be on board with them. I want to see, help them in any way that I can, because at the end of the day, this is Ethereum's future. So, in this blog post, they kind of like announce the raise, and they say what they're going to be essentially putting the money towards, all the same stuff that they've been kind of like doing with, onboarding more people, hiring more people, funding more kind of like scalability research, things like that. And the valuation was actually 1.65 billion, and, raised 150 million here. And I've highlighted how they've been growing the team recently and all the kind of like contributions that they've made to Ethereum core development as well. So it's just going to be more of the same, I think, from Optimism, which is totally fine and good. Like, more of the same is really good, because they've been doing excellent work for a while now. But this is just awesome to see. I mean, it's awesome to see not only Ethereum scalability teams getting the funding, but also getting it so quickly as well. Because I can imagine that this round was probably oversubscribed, and there were probably kind of like, I guess, investors clawing to get a kind of slice of this, and I'm sure Optimism will probably eventually do a Series C, or if they do a token or whatever. And this isn't me having like any kind of inside information or anything like that. No, I mean, I think people get the wrong idea about angel investors. For pretty much all of the projects that I'm an angel investor in, like I think pretty much 100% of them, I never get any kind of like, quote unquote insider information or any special privileged information, and nor do I ask for it, because I don't want that. I want to be able to kind of like just participate as a kind of like a public person as well there. So I don't know if they're going to do a Series C or a token or anything like that. But I've said to you guys before that I think all the L2s are going to do tokens. That's not news. But it's always kind of like a mix up. A toss up of whether they're going to raise another round before doing a token, not just Optimism, but other kind of like projects out there, or whether they'll just go straight to token. We'll have to see how that plays out. But $150 million is a lot of cheddar, guys. It's a lot of money. That's going to definitely put a dent in Optimism's building here, and I'm curious to see, how far they go with this money, and how many new people they hire as well, and who they hire, because they have some rock stars on the team already, and I'm curious to see, who else they kind of like add to the stack there. All right, so a couple of tweets here from pseudotheos and Polynya. So pseudotheos tweeted saying EIP 4844, which is one of the EIPs that I've spoken about lately, would effectively reduce rollup fees by up to 100x even before dank sharding. And in this thread, they explore how this works, and there's kind of like a nice little table here that shows it. So essentially, you can see here, before EIP 4844 for just sending ETH, it would cost you, I guess, let's use Optimism and Arbitrum as an example, 37 cents and 53 cents respectively. Swapping tokens is 54 and 74 cents respectively. But then after 4844, these drop dramatically. It becomes like a sub 1 cent for both sending ETH and swapping tokens. And this is something that I've discussed obviously on the Refuel a lot recently, about how these EIPs are coming in the Shanghai update, hopefully after the merge, and will just dramatically reduce optimistic rollup fees here. So this is really cool. And I've explained how this kind of like works before. It's got to do with data storage and stuff like that. And this is before dank sharding. Once we get dank sharding, the fees are going to be basically negligible for these L2s. I mean, you won't even feel them anymore. And people often say, well, if the fees are so kind of like low, isn't that just going to mean that Ethereum's fee revenue goes down, and that the burn's going to go down? No, guys, this goes back to what I've been saying for a while now. There's going to be so much demand for Ethereum layer 1 block space, even with the cheap layer 2 fees, that it's just going to outpace the cheapness. It doesn't matter that it's cheap. L1 is always going to be congested. Even if everything moves off L1 to L2, L2s are going to fill up that block space very, very quickly, even with kind of like dank sharding. And I think that's because I expect the TPS to go up, immensely. I mean, let me put it to you this way. Right now, with 50-cent transaction fees on layer 2s, a lot of things still aren't economical to do. Microtransactions, right, aren't economical to do. Streaming payments may not even be totally economical to do, especially in a microtransaction sense. Decentralized social media, like all on chain, and kind of like some of the NFT stuff. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's not really that economically feasible. Drop fees down to a 10th of a cent, a 20th of a cent, a 50th of a cent. These things start becoming very, very economical. and then they are going to induce that demand, right, by having the fees that cheap, which essentially means that it's going to make up for I guess it's going to be kind of like a quantity of fees rather than kind of like a small number of transactions having a lot of and providing a lot of fee revenue. It's going to be a large number of transactions providing a lot of small fee revenue, but that adds up over time. So it's kind of like inverting what we currently have today. So very, very cool to see some numbers put to it here from pseudotheos. And then Polynya quote tweeted and said, some clarifications for this and for pseudotheos' thread, where they say L1 call data can be up to 930 kilobytes per block. 10 kilobytes is not the limit. It may be 10 kilobytes now because that's all the demand there is now. And EIP 4844 introduces a dedicated space for rollup data, though it can be any non-state sequential data. And then there's a bunch of other kind of like things in this thread from Polynya as well. This, I mean, it's funny. Like, I'm finding it hard to keep up with this stuff lately, to be honest. This stuff is getting like super awesome. Like, it's actually really crazy to see like how clued in Polynya, people like Polynya and pseudotheos are. And I read these threads and I still learn something new from this every day. So that's what I love. I think for me in this ecosystem, from where I am right now, if someone's able to teach me something new at this point of like, since I cover this space every day and since I basically have been in this space for so long, if someone is able to teach me something new and something super interesting that's really that's also new, then I'm going to follow those people instantly and promote them. And I've been talking about Polynya and pseudotheos a lot recently on the Refuel, and they're definitely both highly recommended follows. You're going to learn so much from them from following them. They really are putting out so much great content, and just look at these threads. As I've been saying a lot lately, the rest of the crypto ecosystem is at least 6 months behind the Ethereum roadmap, or kind of like what's happening in Ethereum. But this sort of stuff is kind of probably 9 to 12 months away from happening at this stage, right? If it even happens in the Shanghai update, and people are really behind on this. They have no idea this is coming, right? So just paying attention to this sort of stuff, just realizing that it's coming. I know it's kind of sometimes hard to deal with all the FUD around, Ethereum has high gas fees, L2 fees are still too high, blah, blah, blah. Guys, as I said before, L2 fees are coming down over time. Once these upgrades go into L1 to enable these L2 fees to come down, it's going to be so totally negligible, and people aren't going to know what to do with all the block space that we give them, all the cheap fees that we give them. So very much looking forward to that, and I guess thanks to Polynya and pseudotheos for putting together these threads today. And there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about with regards to Ethereum's kind of longer-term roadmap, and this is a thread that I think this says his name, Guillaume Ballet started here. He's a Geth core developer. But basically, this is a series of threads to highlight some of the changes that come with stateless Ethereum and Verkle trees. And today is going to talk about changes to the block format. So this is technical, of course, and stateless Ethereum and Verkle trees is on the longer-term Ethereum roadmap. It is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that's happening in the Shanghai update or anything like that either, but it is very important for Ethereum. It is going to enable more scalability, a healthier, more sustainable Ethereum chain, and it's definitely very good to keep on top of this. And as I said, most people are 6 months behind Ethereum. A lot of people are 1 year behind Ethereum. This is probably at least 2 years from being implemented, I would say. So if you're paying attention to this today, you really are at the absolute bleeding edge of Ethereum development. So I recommend paying attention to it, realizing what's going on in the stateless Ethereum and Verkle trees kind of like arena there, because that is also a massive boost to Ethereum scalability, as well as its sustainability and and kind of like ease of running a node going forward and into kind of like the far future as well, which is what it's all about, right? So definitely give this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so another chapter, or another first cut of the chapter of Ben Edgington's Upgrading Ethereum book has been done. So this is on BLS signatures, and you've probably heard about BLS signatures a lot recently in the context of proof of stake, in the context of layer 2 stuff, all that kind of like stuff there. Well, if you want a complete breakdown of what they are and how they work, this is the chapter for you. I actually, just as an aside here, this book from Ben is incredible, freaking incredible. Like, it's not finished yet. It's kind of like, obviously still in development, but like, look at all the chapters he's got here that have been done so far. This chapter's on shuffling. Like, this is not just kind of like a high level overview, guys. This is deep in the weeds, technical stuff. If you want to know everything there is to know about Ethereum, the Ethereum beacon chain, Ethereum proof of stake, and kind of like all that sort of stuff, and just like into the deepest technical weeds you can go, I mean, this is what you read. This is what you have to read. I mean, like, look at this stuff. This is crazy. Like, it's all so well documented as well. I've read a few of these chapters. Like, a lot of it obviously goes over my head because a lot of it is technical, but I'm still getting a lot of useful stuff out of this, and it's just incredible that Ben is able to put this together. He's one of the hardest working people, right? He not only is putting this together, but he does the What's New in ETH2 newsletter. He also works on the Teku client, the Beacon Chain client there. He's just all across this. I mean, it's just incredible. Like, I always, I guess, really respect people like this who are able to kind of like put together such high quality work and so effectively as well and so consistently. I just had to kind of like gush a little bit there. But, you know, that kind of like chapter that I was talking about on BLS signatures, you should definitely go read if you are interested in kind of, I guess, learning more about it and kind of like learning how it all works under the hood. It is quite a lengthy read here from what I can see, but it will explain to you how it all works, why it was chosen, you know, how it helps the Beacon Chain, you know, why it's good, all that sort of stuff there. And, you know, definitely go give this a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you. So, all right, someone showed me this in the Discord channel today, something called Orbis, which is building itself as a Web3 social network. And they put out a tweet, I believe this was from 3 days ago, where they said, remember Blockscan chat from Etherscan? And I covered this on the Refuel when it first came out. We built the same thing, but decentralized and encrypted with no transaction fees. You can now DM any Ethereum address or ENS name with Orbis. Users will see your messages when they join. And then you can have like more, there's a bunch of more details here. Now, I remember when Etherscan brought out their block scan chat, I did say that, well, I'm pretty sure that I said that I wish that it was decentralized and I wish that it was open source. Well, this is claiming to be decentralized. It's built on the Ceramic network and encrypted with Lit protocol here. It is using a bunch of other infrastructure in the background as well that we're all kind of like used to here. And you can go visit this at orbis.club. So this is really cool. I mean, I think decentralized messaging and kind of like using the blockchain to do a lot of different things rather than financial transactions, doing kind of like the quote unquote Web3 stuff, is something that we're going to see a lot more of going forward, especially because NFTs have taken off as well, and you can incorporate NFTs with this sort of stuff very easily. It's all composable, it's all interoperable, and doing it in a decentralized way is no small feat, guys. I know that Status has been building a decentralized messenger for a very long time now, since 2017 basically, and it hasn't really taken off yet. I think they were too early, but as I said, I think we're getting to a point now where this stuff matters more and more, especially given the, I guess, like the stuff happening in the background with censorship and, you know, governments shutting down parts of the internet and blocking things. Like, we really do need these decentralized tools more than ever, because I think that as time goes on, governments, look, I think maybe not in our Western bubble, but I think a lot of governments around the world are definitely going to get more oppressive as time goes on, especially around the internet and trying to control the internet. Some of them will try to control crypto and fail, but as long as we have these tools that work with, you know, with the internet, I think this is how you kind of like protect yourself from that, or at least arm yourself against that, because at the end of the day, these sorts of things are the, you know, modern weapons, right? Like, obviously, as hunter-gatherers, we had physical weapons. That's how we started. You know, we crafted kind of like sticks and stones and things like that, and we basically defended ourselves with that. But in the modern era, you know, you still defend yourself physically with weapons, right? But I mean, most people have no use for that. Most people are protected by the police or by kind of like their nation's army. But then, you know, there are instances where that starts to break down and stuff like that. But for most people, most of the time in Western nations, you don't ever need the police. I don't remember the last time I called the police. I don't remember when I've ever needed the army. Obviously, it's there to protect the nation. But me as a person, protecting my own personal safety, you know, I have to do this online too. Like, there is a world where maybe the Australian government says, you know, this app is banned or this app is banned. They're actually been, the Australian government, unfortunately, has actually been pretty strict against encryption and been trying to, I guess, like, not kill encryption, but like, or encrypted messaging, but try to put in backdoors and get around it. And that's why we need this sort of stuff more than ever, I believe, because you may think you're relatively safe with your Western government, but I think even the Western governments are kind of like, you know, being much more aggressive than I thought they would be at this stage. But yeah, cool to see this from Orbis Club here. You can kind of like see, if you go to orbis.club, hey, someone's talked about me. Anthony Sassano retweeted a thread about it. Will we hear about it featured on the Daily Gwei Refuel tonight? Well, yes, guys, you do. You are. I haven't connected my wallet to this yet. I won't do it on live on the stream here, but this is pretty cool. Like, I like this. This was the person, Adam Dawson, who shared it in the Discord channel there. Well, there you go. I covered it on the Refuel for you, and it gave my kind of like view on why I think it's important. But as I said, there are plenty of these tools coming out, plenty of them coming to market. They're all going to be doing their own kind of like thing and trying to essentially kind of like put their own spin on it. So we're going to have to see how that all shakes out. And I'm very curious to see what the future of these kind of like protocols look like going forward. All right, so finally we have an update here from Kwenta. They announced today that their Futures Beta on Optimism mainnet is finally here. You can now trade ETH, BTC, and Link perp contracts with up to 10 times leverage completely on-chain at v2.beta.kwenta.io. Now, this is built on synthetics using Chainlink oracles as well. Here, this has been a long time coming. I remember when Kwenta spun out of synthetics. It's quite a while ago now, but yeah, it's finally live. As I said yesterday, I think I said yesterday on the Refuel and also wrote about it, there is a DeFi renaissance brewing, guys. Like, they have been building for so long. There is the layer 2 stuff that is going to enable DeFi to go to the next level. There are so many kind of like innovations happening, not the quote unquote DeFi 2.0 innovations that was just kind of like mostly Ponzi stuff, but actual innovations happening, especially given that L2 enables new things to be able to be built. Obviously lowers fees, will onboard new users during the kind of like next leg up. And as I mentioned yesterday, I actually feel like ETH, I don't want to jinx it, but I really do feel like ETH is ready to run again, especially coming up to the merge. And that's going to bring in so many new people into the Ethereum ecosystem, and layer 2s are ready for them now, guys. Like, yes, the fees aren't as cheap as they're going to be, but they're cheap. They're much cheaper than mainnets, and they're getting cheaper over time as well. And there's more of an ecosystem on there too. I mean, Aave is now live on there, right? So pretty much most things that people want to do on Ethereum Layer 1, they can now do on Optimism, Arbitrum, or even the Polygon POS chain. And I think that's going to be, especially being able to withdraw to these things from centralized exchanges, I think that's going to be very, very awesome to see how this plays out with a new wave of new users coming in and beginning to experience layer 2 Ethereum rather than having to be stuck on layer 1 Ethereum. And then we all hear them go on about the gas fees being kind of like high and how Ethereum's a scam and kind of like bleeding them dry and all that sort of stuff, right? So I'm personally looking forward to that most going forward, right? And kind of like over the next, I guess, 6 to 12 months or even just like the remainder of this year. We're already like halfway through March, guys. It's actually quite insane. But yeah, so very cool to see this. Definitely go check out Kwenta if you haven't already. You can go, in the blog post here and go visit at v2.beta.kwenta.io. All right, last few minutes of the Refuel today. Just wanted to quickly remind you guys that I'm going to be at Blockchain Week next week. I am flying up to Sydney on the Monday night, so I'm going to try and record the Refuel on the Monday during the day, do the newsletter and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to be at the Sydney event on Tuesday all day. Hope to see many of you there. Then I'm flying back to Melbourne Wednesday morning, and I'll be at the Melbourne event all day as well. And I think Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a Refuel. So I'm just warning you guys, if you don't see a Refuel on Tuesday or Wednesday, it's because I've been at the conference. I mean, I'm going to the after parties too, so there's like a near 0% chance, guys. I'll try, but I don't think it's going to happen. Just kind of like warning you there. But Monday, definitely there will be one. And of course, on the remainder, Thursday, Friday as well. I think Thursday's episode, I'm probably just going to use that, like at least probably half of that to cover everything from the Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Just, to give you guys my view on it, how everything went, what I kind of learned and what I kind of gleaned from it. But yeah, as I said, hope to see lots of you guys there. I know that tickets are like absolutely oversold. I think they're like 5 times oversold. So unfortunately, a lot of you won't be able to come to the physical events. I hope you'll watch both of my talks. I'm doing one with Mehdi from Sigma Prime. I'll be doing that in Sydney on Tuesday morning. You can find the full schedule on the Blockchain Week website. And then Wednesday, to close out the day in Melbourne, I'm actually interviewing Kane from Synthetics. And that's going to be cool as well. So very much looking forward to all of that. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.